CJ Peterson, and welcome to The Journey is Real. We talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of their hearts. Today, my guest is Patti Talbot, and we've titled her podcast, How to Change the World from the Inside Out. Thank you for coming on today, Patti.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited, CJ. Thank you.
So am I. We were talking a little bit before, just kind of like the relaxed atmosphere of the conversation, and I'm really excited to dive into your passion. Transforming the world from the inside out. How do you do that? Because that's unique and a tall order.
Yes, it is a tall order. And it's really just about understanding that all change in the world happens from the inside out of human beings, from our individual passions, our individual strengths, our individual interests, and how confident we feel in our ability to show up and make things happen. So really, that's what it's about. Nothing happens on the outside world with it first happening inside of us.
Now, you have a pretty vast background in education. Would you please, share some of that experience along with maybe a story or two so people can kind of get a feel where you're coming from?
Absolutely. I'd love to. Well, I am a public educator in my heart and in my life and career. I spent more than 35 years in public education, from preschool all the way up through graduate school.
Bless your heart. My mom was a 26-year sixth grade teacher.
Yeah, so I love that middle school kind of age. Is just wonderful.
I was youth group leader for 18 years, and most of those I was one of the middle school teachers. Yeah. And I love that age because, before that they're being kind of told what to believe. When they hit middle school, it's kind of the age where they're questioning, why do I believe what I believe? And I love the question of why, because it's teaching them their thought process.
Absolutely. So I started as a teacher. Also, I was a fourth grade and fifth grade teacher. And then I became a guidance counselor. So I served elementary school students from preschool through fifth grade as a counselor. Then I was a school principal. And again, I worked with preschoolers through fifth graders in those roles. Then I moved to the central office and was director of instruction for a year, which it was honestly a role I didn't love because it took me away from children. And I love to work with children, and I love to teach is really my heart and I think my strength. So I moved from there to the university, where I did teacher preparation for elementary students, people who wanted to be teachers. And then I moved into leadership preparation. So that was the graduate program that I worked with, was teaching teachers who wanted to be school principals. And I learned so much as a teacher. Any good teacher is first and foremost a learner. And I just, over those many years.
Yes. We're all learners at
the
core. If you
absolutely
stop learning, you're done.
Yes. And my license plate on my car even today says Heart Learning, LRNING. And I always sign off always learning, because that's who I am at my core, is a learner. And I just learned so many things. I have so many stories about teaching, but the one or two I'd like to share today really relate to that learning curve that I've always been on, but particularly related to cultural competencies, that my stories are related to my own cultural incompetencies, because I feel like sometimes when you are non-examples, sometimes are our very best teachers. So when I was a school principal, I had this one incident that really changed the course of my life. And it was a very simple moment in time with a family who came through the door of my school office to register their children for the school. There was a first grader and a kindergartner coming in to register. Mom and dad were there. And when I went to greet them, as I always do, I reached out my hand to the father, who was the head of the little family coming in, and he shrunk back his hand like this and said, "I don't shake hands with women." And it was apparent to me that they were from not my community in Blacksburg, Virginia, in the United States. It seemed like maybe they were from somewhere in the Middle East. And I was a little bit taken aback by that. My feminist person, who has always wanted to stand up for women's rights, kind of took a little offense at that, but thankfully I had enough good manners not to show my offense. I just, took my hand away and went on and toured them around. But I
Better
kept
you than me
thinking,
because my face gives me away like you would not
yes,
believe.
yeah, oh yes, mine too.
I
But
can't hide it.
I
I
was
can't lie.
polite, yes, yeah. And I just took them on around the school building, but I kept thinking, this really bugs me. Why would that man not shake my hand? I'm the school principal, for goodness sake.
Mhm.
So I started doing a little research on what that was all about. As I understood, they were of the Muslim faith. And what I discovered in my research was that not shaking my hand meant no offense to me. It was out of respect for his wife, because in fact, in his faith, the only woman he ever touches is his wife. And I'm good with that,
That
but
that's a good. I never connected that. That's a really
yes, and I didn't know it before. So it was just one of those what am I missing moments
Mhm.
that got me really curious about what else am I missing in those moments when I take offense or I'm not quite understanding.
Well,
So yeah,
and
go
in
ahead.
today's culture, I mean, today's an offensive culture.
Yes,
That's
it
kind of
is.
one of the things that I like about the journey as well. We kind of rip down walls, knock them out, and talk about stuff that some people are afraid to talk about, or they're afraid to
Yes,
offend somebody. Um,
yes.
I don't do it to be offensive. I do
Mhm.
it so that people can see the perspective of somebody else and understand,
Yes,
their background or their culture or how that works. And in you doing that, you
yes.
just played out a perfect example of making sure to understand somebody's culture. Yes, it was offensive to you, but when you understood why he did it and you realized it was respect for his wife, that changed your entire line of thinking and it changed your entire perspective.
It absolutely did. And I find the stories that I remember as an educator are those kinds of aha moments when I go, something else is going on here. I don't quite understand it. I better dig into what it is before I just dismiss it as someone being rude to me or something that I don't understand. And I went on from there to get really interested in global competency education and understanding other cultures, which was very much a big part of my work at the university as well. I took students on study abroad trips to a little country in Africa called Malawi. Don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a little country on the southeastern part of the sub-Saharan part of Africa.
Okay.
And I took trips there, I think 6 times over my career. And I had so many incidences that were those aha moments. One that sticks out in my mind there was related to our first time in the market. I had students, I had about eight students, mostly young women, because they wanted to be elementary school teachers. And that's still kind of the norm in our society. Women become teachers a lot of times. And I got into that market situation unfamiliar to me. And we were surrounded by vendors trying to sell us their wares.
Yeah.
And I am an American shopper, typically used to go into the stores and finding what I want and looking at the price tag and asking for help if I need it. So I was very overwhelmed in that situation. And the mama bear inside of me, always the protector and the mother and the principal of the school, got really big. And my students started calling me Mama Bear after this, because I was just so afraid and protective and put up this big barrier. And I really had to again think, what am I missing here? Because once I took a deep breath, calmed down, and actually over the rest of that trip and many others after it, actually became friends with the vendors there and came to understand these are just people doing what they do, selling their beautiful wares to the Americans who are here, who obviously have resources to spend. So we're going to offer those. So it just
Oh,
became a very big theme in my life, this idea of what am I missing and what do I need to develop in myself in order to be a better teacher to my students, whether they're little tiny students or big college students.
mhm. Well, one thing to consider as well, in third world countries, you know,
Yes.
people don't understand. For example, Mexico, they
Hmm.
have flea markets called tianguis, and a lot of
Yes.
times people go
Very
through
similar.
those, and it's kind of the same idea. And what people don't
Yes.
understand is that sometimes is literally the money that they make to eat that night.
Absolutely.
And people don't understand, like, why are they so pushy? And it's like, well, because that's our food money for today. And
Yes.
people don't understand that. And when that registers, it kind of brings the whole thing on to a whole new meeting. And then you're kind of like, okay, well, with that thought in mind, who can I help eat tonight? Who can I help give a meal to tonight?
Right, exactly. And the other piece of it is that understanding of personal space, that we have a different norm around that. And
Mhm.
we can adjust to another norm if we know what it means. But our nature may be to think, you need to have 2 or 3 feet between you and a stranger.
Mhm.
That is not necessarily the norm when you travel internationally. So this was all part of the beginning of my education in global competence, that a journey I'm still on, by the way.
Yeah, no, though, the journey always continues.
Mhm.
The journey is real, but
It
it
is.
continues daily,
Yeah.
because the more that you learn and the more that you understand, and the more that you can think globally, you'll be able to help in a lot more specific, targeted ways. I
Yes,
think is just kind of how to
absolutely.
word it. Well, for those who want to know more about you online, I know that you have, it's called blueroadseducation.org. Can you explain exactly what that is first?
Yes. Blue Rhodes Education got its name from the rural roads of Virginia, not just of Virginia, but of the United States. It's kind of based off a book that was written back in the 70s, 80s called The Blue Highways, that
Mhm.
was all encouraging tourism on the back roads, like Route 66 across the US, that kind of thing. And because I'm rurally situated in Southwestern Virginia in the mountains, I'm very much focused on bringing global education and global competencies into rural America,
Mhm.
so that people like me, I was pretty old before I started working on my global competencies in my 40s when I first became a principal. And my passion is to really help that start a lot sooner.
Mhm.
And it may happen sooner in more urban communities and more cosmopolitan communities, but where I live, it's very white, very rural. It's not necessarily a ready topic of conversation. So part of my passion is to make it a more prevalent conversation in our schools. So that's how Blue Roads got its name.
Mhm.
And I, through my global education work, got more and more connected to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the
Mhm.
17 goals that the United Nations has declared that with work from countries all over the world, these are the 17 issues that we need to be working on
And what?
together around the globe. They are things like no more poverty, no more hunger, health and well-being for everyone, quality education for everyone, environmental justice, equity, infrastructure and businesses that are sustaining people's livelihoods, partnerships. So there's 17 of them, and I probably can't name them all right off. But that
That's a
interest
good start. That's
as an
a start.
educator, yes, and that changed my languaging slightly from global education, got me there, but into what I call change maker education, which is really not just about public schools. It's about everyone who has a burning desire to show up and create a more equitable, inclusive world and a healthful world that works better for everyone. And so I do that by working mostly with women, but not necessarily only in the education arena, also in whatever walk of life they're into, from business to healthcare, just people that are really passionate about showing up and being taking courageous action for change. So that's really what Blue Roads Education is all about.
And I mean, if you think about it, the US is a melting pot.
Yeah.
We have people from so many different cultures and countries that come
Mm-hmm.
together to create the US. The US is currently divided more than I would like. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like the division. We are known as the United States, not the divided states.
Right.
And so when we can understand where people are coming from a little bit more, it allows us to not be as divided. It allows us to, work together. It allows us to get to know each
Mm-hmm.
other on a different level and say, you know what, they're just a person. They're just a
Yep.
person at heart. I mean, I grew up Army
Exactly.
brat, and so we've always gone with the term we all bleed red. I mean, it doesn't matter to me what color your skin is, what your gender is, what you identify as, or whatever it is. To me, your heart is what matters to me. And if more people would understand that concept, and I think more people would come together on such unique levels. I mean,
Yes.
cultures and history just fascinate me beyond words. And so I love going into a new country because my husband and I travel a lot. I love going into a new country and finding the history, finding like castles or statues, or the old cathedrals are just stunning. And so it's like trying to find things that would help me understand that culture a little bit more, and meeting and talking to the people. What's your favorite food? What does it taste like? I never knew that, I'm from Texas. We're used to Tex-Mex. I never knew that Mexican food really wasn't spicy.
Right. Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah.
It's like, when you fully understand a culture, and really fully understand what drives them, and where their hearts are. And I mean, there's good and bad people in every single culture. Just hands
Absolutely.
down, they are there. It's what, but there are those good. And it's like you can find those good, and when you reach those good and connect with those good people, it enriches your life and you enrich theirs as well. So it's not just one-sided, it's two-sided.
Right. Yeah. We like to use the analogy of a patchwork as a patchwork quilt, because what's beautiful about a patchwork quilt is even though it comes together to create one beautiful work of art or a utilitarian blanket for your bed, it still remains distinct in the colors and the patterns that are represented. So we use that to represent diversity rather than it all melding together. Instead, celebrate the diversity and figure out how to make it work together. So one of our company slogans is Homegrown Solutions for a Patchwork World. Again, meaning starting with the homegrown self, working on solutions and connecting across diversity to make the world a better place. So that's kind of the meaning of my little slogan.
And you can also, when you think about it, a patchwork quilt usually can comfort somebody.
Yes, I love that.
What color they are, what nationality they are, or religion they are, whatever it is, that same patchwork quilt can give comfort to one person, and give comfort to another person. And
I love that. I'm going to use that. May I use that?
Go for it.
That's beautiful.
The blanket of comfort is from many different patterns and many different things, but it still provides the same comfort to somebody.
Beautiful. Yes, I love that.
Awesome. Well, on blueroadseducation.org, what would they find?
They will find some information about how I work with schools, but also specific information about how I'm working with what I call changemaker circles, are mastermind style groups for people who want to show up and create change as individuals. And that's the thing that I'm working right now to fill are more of my changemaker circle groups with the idea of creating circles that ripple out and create more and more ripples around the world. So I have wonderful groups, mostly, as I said, of women of all ages who have this passion to create social and environmental change. And we use a mastermind model. If you're familiar with that at all, it's a structured kind of conversation where everybody comes with their own goals. So we don't have to all be working on the same issue. We can be working, somebody can be working on racial justice and somebody else on climate action and somebody else on you mentioned your family being in the service. One of my current clients is a young woman who's working on helping the military be more hospitable to women. And she has an organization called Service Sisters. And I have a woman who's working to create materials for families to raise children that are more self-aware and give them the environment they need. So any kind of change makers, that's who I'm
and the beauty of a mastermind that not a people,
yes.
Some people who've never been to one might not understand as well. Each person has a certain thing that they're working on. When you get like 5 to 10 different minds that are kind of helping, they can brainstorm brilliant ideas to help with that. And I love that you're taking your passion, and it's not just a global passion, you're actually bringing it back down to the grassroots, and you're starting it, you're being proactive and making change. And I like that. So how can people find you online? Can you spell that out for those who are listening?
Yes, it is blueroadseducation.org. So the color blue, BLUE, Rhodes, ROADS, education, EDUCATION.org. And that's where you'll find me.
Sweet. We have about 3 minutes left. Is there anything you would like to add?
Yes, I would just love to share with your audience my perception of change makers and what they are, because I get often asked, isn't everyone a change maker just by living and breathing and walking around? And I would say everybody is a little C change maker just by
Just
living
a
and
little.
breathing and walking around, because we do make change just by showing up and being here. But what I'm talking about at Blue Rhodes is what I call a big C change maker. And these are people who understand themselves, they're self-aware, they're self-confident, they have a good core set of values, and they're ready to use their power for good, specifically by working with diverse others and creating ripple effects in the world. So our 4-quadrant model is being, doing, connecting, and reflecting.
Mm-hmm.
And that reflecting piece is where we show up as leaders with a global mindset, critically thinking, and ready to reflect positive messaging out into the world. Because we think of reflection as something that happens internally, and it certainly is, but it's also about when I reflect internally about who I am and what's my role in the world, then I'm going to reflect outwardly my message, and my message will be inspiring and others will want to join me. So that's really what it is about. Everybody can be a big C change maker, but everybody's not automatically a big C change maker. They have some work to do. They
Right.
will be if they focus on themselves and what they're doing and how they're connecting with others and what they're reflecting into the world. That's what makes a big C change maker.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your heart today with us, Patty. We really appreciate it. And thank you for making people aware of others and being proactive and making changes around the world. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, CJ. And thank you for your change making work with this
Thank you.
podcast. It's very exciting what you're getting out there. So
Well,
thank you so
very
much.
For those who want to learn more about Patty and her mission, again, you can find her at blueroadseducation.org. That's BLUEROADSEDUCATION.org. And thank you guys for listening to The Journey is Real, where we talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of their hearts. I'm CJ Peterson at cjpetersonwrites.com. Until next time.